All right, so let's go through knowledge check 16.6.3. We are going to use the complete journey data, and then we'll use the dplyr and lubridate packages to do some data wrangling. All right, number one, compute the last or the most recent transaction date in our transactions sample data. All right, so if we look at transaction sample, we can see if we scroll all the way over, we have this transaction timestamp. And what we can actually do is we can summarize, and let's say last date equals, and if we apply max, the min or the max function to a date timestamp, it's going to take the largest value, which would be the most recent value. So I can go ahead and say transaction timestamp, and I can see that the last date was December 31st of 2017. And we could always compare. Let's go ahead and just do this where we want to get the first date, which would be min, and then we've got our last date. So now we can see first date is January 1st of 2017, and the last date is December 31st of 2017. So this data, it includes a full year of information throughout the year 2017. Okay, so let's look at this next one. Identify shoppers that haven't made a transaction within 3 months of this date. And what it's referring to is let's look for shoppers that haven't made a transaction within 3 months of the most recent date in this data. All right, so how do we go about doing that? Well, there's several different ways we could do this. One is, let's go ahead and create a new variable, and we're going to call this last date, which is what we just calculated previously. Transaction timestamp. Right, so now, and let me do this. I'm going to go ahead and just downsize. I'm going to select household ID, basket ID, and timestamp. Whoop. There we go. So now we can see these are the individual shoppers, the basket ID number for that whole transaction, and then the transaction timestamp. So, oh, and one thing we forgot to do, last date. We created this variable that we want to see. All right, so we can see the actual transaction timestamp and then the last date within the whole data frame, which is that December 31st. But what we want to do is we want to find all the transaction timestamps that are within 3 months of this date. All right, so what we could do here now is say I want to filter for those observations where the difference between our transaction timestamp, actually I want to put the most recent, the difference between the last date minus transaction timestamp is greater than 3 months, and we can use this d months. This is basically a function that we can use to generate a value that's represented by 3 months, 1 month, 2 month, or 3 months. In this case, we care about 3 months. So what this is going to do is it's going to compute this last date minus transaction timestamp and look for all those where the value is greater than 3 months. Actually, we need this to be less than or equal, because the question is within 3 months of this date. So let's go ahead and run that. And now what we see is all these transactions that exist are going to be within 3 months of the last date. So we see we got November, we got October, and if you scroll through or kind of search through, you're not going to find anything that goes beyond September or the 3 months beyond this last date here.